Welcome to the 7th episode of Shrink Wrap Hawaii. I'm your host, Stephen Katz. First of all, on this show, I want to do something that I should have done at the very first show, and that is to thank Jay Fidel, his lovely staff, and his contributors to making this incredible opportunity possible, to give me and people like me a free venue to air their views and say things, talk about things we are passionate about, and let the whole world see it. Thanks to all of you. This is truly a great gift. I became a marriage and family therapist because I'm passionate about relationships. I've always been intensely curious about each person's story. This morning, I was able to watch the President of the United States do something I never saw before. The President of the United States cry and cry and cry, real tears, as he recounted the stories of those of us in America who've been killed or hurt by guns. He connected to this issue mental health and promised to increase funding for people to get help. He also reminded us that during his tenure, he has made it mandatory for health insurance providers to give equal benefits to people seeking mental health as it is their physical ailments. Most people have never heard of a group called NAMI, N-A-M-I, the National Alliance on Mental Health. I should say the National Alliance on Mental Illness. That wouldn't make sense, would it? This volunteer nonprofit helps families deal with the enormous stress of having a loved one with a severe mental health problem. If you have someone in your family with schizophrenia, schizoaffective disorder, bipolar personality disorder, or major depressive disorder, or another severe mental illness, you can go online anywhere in the United States to NAMI.org and find totally free support and educational groups in the area in which you live. I know this because it's helped me and my family. In my practice as a marriage and family therapist, I help people as individuals, couples, and families deal with the enormous stressors of everyday life. Stressors that make life unhappy in the most extreme way. Stressors that lead to divorce, emotional and/or physical abuse, stressors that prevent people from finding the joy of connecting with others that they know is out there, but beyond their reach. That is why I'm doing this show. In psychology, there is no one-size-fits-all cure for what bothers us. There are a myriad of methods that therapists use. That is why each week on this show, you have seen and will continue to see different approaches. I urge you, if you see someone here on this show and you think maybe you'd like to talk to that person, please go ahead and contact them or me. I would really love to help. My email is on the screen, steve@hawaiifamilytherapist.com, and my office number is 808-394-2800. Thank you, and without any further ado, I would like now to introduce a good friend of mine and an experienced professional, Catherine Hage. Thank you for coming, Catherine.
Oh, thank you so much for having me here.
So, at long last, when we talked and emailed each other, you told me that you had some very serious issues that you would like to talk about today. But before we get into that, let me ask you, what pushed you, what motivated you to go to school and take all the trainings that you needed to take in order to get into the field of mental health?
I really appreciated your opening statement and that you talked about passion. And I remember one of my mentors saying that to do this work, to be so involved with people's lives, we need to have a passion for it and a deep caring and a deep commitment. And that compassion, that when we see suffering, we want to make a difference, ameliorate it if possible, and help that person tap into their own resiliency and their ability to be one again with their inherent joy and their creativity, and to be able to express themselves fully in the world and to really love their lives and who they are. And it's such a privilege and a deep pleasure to have any part of that process, to hold the space for a person to reemerge more closely as themselves. So there's nothing that's more important to me. There's nothing that brings me greater pleasure than to have that privilege of sitting with another person in their vulnerable moments to facilitate their own healing.
Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Connecticut.
And did you come from a large family, small family?
I was one of 4 children, the youngest. Yeah.
And was it growing up in a family that made you want to do this?
It was being part of the human race, being a member of the planet.
Did you
really.
always know that you wanted to do this?
I didn't have a name for it, but from a very young age, I cared about suffering, and I recently had an idea about it like this, that people who are medical professionals, when they see someone who's bleeding or severely injured, most of us recoil out of fear, like, oh my gosh, this person could die, I don't know what to do, it's scary. But they move in. They want to be present in that moment and to actually help. And I think those of us who have gravitated toward the field of mental health, it's a similar dynamic, that if somebody is under stress or strain, if they're not functioning at their best at all, they're exhibiting a lot of pain, other people may tend to recoil and back away, but we have that urge to move in, to be present, to make contact, to help facilitate that healing dynamic that can help when we're not alone, we're not isolated with what troubles us.
So you were always like that? Were you always the person that friends talked to, told their troubles to?
I think so, yes, to some degree. I remember it happening at a young age and having the thought, I don't really know too much about what they're talking about, but they're confiding this in me, you know, and to just care and be present and listen. And that's something that we all have, that even if we don't have incredible knowledge about a subject, don't know how to quote unquote fix it, if we're present, if we care, if we hold the space, that's a tremendous gift. And that's something that we can offer each other whenever we have the capacity for it.
So you also mentioned that today you'd like to talk about some of the more serious issues that people face. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yes. We all experience stress and strain in our lives, but there comes a point for many people where they feel like life isn't worth carrying on, that they may have a commitment to life. It's they have children, they have family members, a community, it's against their religion, they know they would never take their life, but they're finding that they're thinking that maybe it would be better off if they just didn't live anymore, that life has lost its pleasure, and it's just become a lot of suffering and very burdensome. And I feel like it's important to bring this topic to the surface, that people can talk about it, and to not layer on a feeling of shame because they're going through that suffering or they're having ambivalence about their very life itself.
Yeah, it's really hard. I mean, you're afraid to even bring the subject up with people. You think somehow, oh, if I mention the word suicide, that's going to increase the likelihood of them doing that, and I don't want to do that, so nobody talks about it.
And it's that secrecy that's so excruciatingly painful, whereas if we can share openly about what our thoughts, our feelings, and our experiences, that discharges a lot of the excruciating aspects of it.
Yeah, I know that where you've worked, you've probably come across quite a few people facing those issues.
Yes.
It must be very hard.
And maybe this would be a good time in case anyone who's viewing is actually at that place where they're contemplating suicide or they feel like they're at a point where they could harm themselves or another person, and we really want to urge you to get help, to not be alone with this. And if you had an access number that
in Hawaii,
you could share?
the Adult Mental Health Division has a phone number you can call, a hotline. It's 832-3100. 832-3100. Call and get some help. Talk to a person. Yeah.
Yes. And, if you're outside of Hawaii or that's not enough help, to dial 911 or to go to your nearest emergency room. And while any mental health professional is a mandated reporter, that means if somebody does have an intention to harm themselves or another person, we have to take action like this. Behind that is not just simple professionalism. It is a deep caring and an honoring of life in general and of your life, of your personhood, which is precious and unrepeatable. So that's a message to begin the show with, and and also to talk about people who know that they're committed to life. They're not going to take an action like this.
Yeah.
But we also want you to not be in that kind of suffering and to experience the inherent joy of your life more deeply and more immediately.
Do you think that certain people, I don't know, this may seem like an obvious question, but everybody goes through moods, right? Sometimes many in one day, right? When you feel great, you feel like everything's perfect in the world, and then 10 minutes later, it's like, I don't want to get out of bed. What's different for somebody that has, what we call real depression?
Well, there's a lot of different delineations of what depression is and what it looks like in a person's life. And if someone hasn't experienced depression, to tread very softly with your friend who is, because they are probably having an experience that's very different than yours. So help me out with this question, what you're looking for. You're looking for the different ways that this, can manifest?
How long do I have to feel down before you start calling it depression? Is there a way to know if you're depressed?
Well, the standard is if you can't take pleasure in life, if the things that you normally enjoyed aren't enjoyable for you, if there's pronounced changes to sleep patterns, to eating patterns, if you find yourself isolating from other people, these can be warning signs.
What are some things that you can do? What do you do? I mean, sure, you yourself, we all experience crummy moods. What do you do to bring yourself up?
Well, that's such an important question, and I'm glad that you asked it. And I guess I would start with the very basic. So has something traumatic happened? Are you experiencing that? Have you been attacked? Have you been assaulted? Have you been raped? Has something really profound happened? And then to keep yourself safe. So can you remove yourself? Can you put yourself in a safer modality? Can you ask for help? Are you driving your car? Can you take an exit and get to a safer place? To really take care of basic physical things first, your physical body, your physical safety. If you're out in the cold, can you find warmth? Can you find shelter? If you're in a busy work situation, can you remove yourself, go to the bathroom, go to another floor? Is it possible to be in a safer place and separate from, so something dramatic may have happened, something very subtle, something completely non-recognizable to those around you might have happened. Someone may have said something, or you may have gotten a piece of news, but it may have triggered something inside of you that's deeply disturbing, that brings up a trauma or brings up very painful feelings. And to just work with physical safety to begin with. And then from there, each one of us has things that anchor and ground us, and to reach for those tools, to take some deep breaths. Is there a safe person you can call, to reach out to speak to? How does your spirituality support you? Do you have prayer or meditation, or can you touch base with nature in some way? To work with those basic grounding things. And also, are you hungry? Are you thirsty? Are you very tired? To be able to address basic physical needs and remove yourself. Are there toxics in your environment? And can you separate yourself from them? Literally, like, is there a plastic bag burning on your burner and it's putting out toxic fumes? To not underestimate the power of sleeplessness, of environmental toxins or stressors of that sort to remove yourself. And then once you're out of that kind of immediate pressure, to start doing the things that heal and reconnect you. And I think connecting with another human being who's safe, who will not shame you or make you wrong or try to fix you in that moment, but can just hold the space for you to have the experience that you're having so that you can discharge it and you can not be alone with it.
I need to hold this space for about 1.5 minutes. We're going to go to break. Thank you. We'll be right back.
Aloha, my name is Justine Espiritu, and I co-host Hawaii Farmers Series with Matthew Johnson of Oahu Fresh. We talk about Hawaii's local farmers and their supporters. In order to have a vibrant and sustainable local food system, farmers are always the foundation, but there's so many other people involved in the community that help support those farmers. So we bring those folks onto our show every Thursday at 4 p.m. We get their backstory, their history, find out a little more about them, and we find out why they love what they do and their perspective and their advice on how we can continue to have a dynamic and vibrant and sustainable local food system. So we broadcast live every Thursday at 4 p.m. And you can also catch us on ThinkTech's YouTube channel as well as Alelo 54. So we hope you tune in and join us. Thank you.
Aloha! How you doing? It's me, Angus McTech, wishing you to welcome and join us to see us on Hibachi Talk on ThinkTech Hawaii. Join my co-hosts, Gordo the Tech Czar and Andrew the Security Guy, every Friday from 1300 to 1345. We look forward to seeing you. We'll talk tech and we'll have some wee bit of fun. And remember, let your wing gang free wherever you be. Aloha!
Hi, my name's Hillary Weinberg. I'm the host of The Whole Gamut on ThinkTech Hawaii. See us live every Tuesday at 1 p.m. or on our YouTube channel to hear us talk about world affairs from Hawaii and beyond. See you then.
Welcome back to Shrink Wrap. I'm here with my guest, Catherine Hage. So you were saying first, make sure that everything in your physical environment is keeping you safe and is not intruding on you and getting you down. And then you mentioned spirituality, meditation. Spirituality can be what?
Spirituality can be anything that sustains you, brings comfort, and brings meaning to a situation. So in an episode where someone is triggered, they're in a lot of pain, they're hitting a bottom, it feels really miserable, it feels really horrible, but there's also a tremendous potentiality within it. So in a broken heart, a heart can break open and have even a greater capacity to love and connect with others by having had that experience and going through a profound...
That's so hard. Like I was just thinking, you know, in my practice, I work with couples a lot, people who are really having a difficult time in their relationships, you know, marriages of 35 years falling apart, they haven't talked to each other, haven't had sex with each other, they can't even look at each other. And yeah, their hearts are broken. I mean, where do you go with that?
I trust the person that I'm sitting with and their guidance, that each of us has a life that's noble and beautiful, that we're on a path and we're living and learning as we go. And so it's one of the wonderful things about sitting in this position that we don't have to have all the answers.
Yeah.
We can support them in accessing their deeper truth, how they bring meaning to their experience. And I have a deep faith that consciously experiencing our lives brings great meaning, and each person defines their own spirituality, comes to an understanding of it in a way that's uniquely meaningful and beneficial to them and the people around them. And so going through these difficult times, these times of heartbreak, of despair, of darkness, it's like the fields that lie fallow. We're not constantly planting and reaping, but there's times where the fields lie quiet and quiescent, and a deep and beautiful thing happens where that soil becomes richer and more fertile.
Wow. It sounds great, but when somebody is, you know, just crying and suffering, it's really hard to accept and just have faith, I guess. I guess that's where the spirituality comes in. that this too will change.
And I think in terms of being a practitioner,
Yeah.
that we're quietly holding that space and that faith in that person, in their life, and in their inner capacity to handle life stressors that maybe the practitioner couldn't handle, but that person living their life will in some way, shape, or form. And that we're creating that sanctity, that I-thou relationship where we're honoring them and their relationship so that they can bring that forward and to not rush into it. Someone's weeping, they're in pain, their heartbreak broken, to not rush to that place of, it's all okay, you're going to be okay. But to give a space to honor those emotions, that if a hurricane is happening, we honor the furor and the force and the beauty of that hurricane. And if we have safety and shelter, we can honor it because we know we're not going to get whipped around by it. So the therapeutic dynamic can create that shelter where the lightning is striking, the waves are rising, but we don't have to be sucked into the undertow. We can hold on, like in the East Coast, they would lash the captain to the wheel so they don't get washed over. Steady the course. No storm lasts forever.
Yeah, yeah. So what do you do personally to keep yourself grounded through these storms? Not as a practitioner, but as a person.
As a person, well, body, mind, and spirit. So to attend to the physical body, feed it well, drink, exercise, fresh air, sunshine, all living things need these basic things. And if we neglect them, then that affects our mind and our spirits and our emotions as well. So, and if life has become such that self-care seems absolutely impossible, then to invoke that willingness to make changes, that if we don't take the time to take care of our physical bodies, it's only a matter of time before things degrade and erode. Mentally, to have good mental hygiene, to know the kinds of thoughts that we're thinking, what our beliefs are, what beliefs are fostering health and happiness and connectivity, and which beliefs are fostering discord and despair, and to get help with that. So talking about it with another person, being part of a larger community, doing things that take us outside of ourselves and where we can recognize our usefulness and our ability to contribute to the larger whole.
Do you have regular routines that you do?
I do, and I think that each person can develop their own regimen that's meaningful for them and supportive to them and works in their life that's manageable for what they have.
You look like you're in great shape. What do you do?
I practice yoga daily, and I, have a food regimen that supports my mental clarity and my spiritual connection. And that can happen in a myriad of ways for people: walking, bicycle riding, Tai Chi, membership at the gym, just, to not make it too scary and intimidating, but just something that's reasonable and appropriate for each individual person.
And do you find that affects your mood?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's an antidepressant.
Exercise.
Exercise, getting your heart rate above a certain level.
Yeah.
And also mind-body techniques like Tai Chi or yoga, breathing, transform in a way that's separate from cardiovascular health and work in very deep and powerful ways. So they tap into the natural chemicals in the body that transform mood.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, I've been running most of my life, and there's the chemicals. It's very predictable. I get to a certain spot in my run every day, and I'm happy. I mean, it's very rare.
And these are things that help maintain us, but they are very supportive, but they may not get to the root of the problem. There may be trauma from a long time ago that's never been processed, or there may be dynamics in life, like you're mentioning in marriage and family counseling, that there's some deep unhappiness there. There's discord and disconnection. With those other things in place of the taking care of the basic physical needs and, being aware of the thoughts that we're thinking and what we're fostering mentally, then there's a platform to go a little deeper. How are we living our lives? What are our patterns and characteristics? Which ones are fruitful in getting us results that we like? Which ones are really destructive? And where can we make changes? Certainly, if there's addictions present, addictions to alcohol, drugs, food, sex in a way that's not wholesome or safe, gambling, what have you, they have negative repercussions on the life. And to get specific help with those issues, to clear away that debris and wreckage so we can be more authentic in our own lives and in our connections with others.
Yeah. It's so hard, though, to change those things, whether it's an addiction or just a pattern of thinking, a negative way of thinking, or to change your relationship, right? Because you can't change your relationship by yourself if it's a relationship, with another person.
I almost think it's magical, that we invoke the willingness. We have humility. It's not working. What can I do? I recognize that there's a problem here.
You say that to the other person.
We can say it to ourselves. When we get to that point, when an individual gets to that point where they think, there's something profoundly not working in my life. I'm miserable way too often. I'm not connecting in a way that I want to with those in my life. I'm not able to give in the way that I earnestly desire and share my gifts and talents. It brings us to that place of humility that I'm ready for change. I want change. And I'm willing to take those steps, as scary as it may be. And that willingness, and then invoking that awareness, what's working, what's not working, what's reaping benefits, what's reaping destruction.
Right.
It sets a ball in motion. And then to invoke help, to ask for help, to work with another person or a group of people. Now we're outside the realm of what I simply can do within my ego structure and my personality, and we're tapping into something much larger.
It is pretty amazing. Whenever I've done group work, to see the changes that happen in groups, because people sometimes, if somebody confronts them or they have to ask a question about themselves, they get defensive and get into the old pattern of being, closed off. But if they hear two other people talking, they can recognize those patterns in themselves without being vulnerable, but they can just think, wow, I do that too. Or, I can't believe what that person just said, that's me. Or, to hear that from the person who is supposed to love you, and then, I do that. Yeah, there's some things you can do by yourself, and sometimes you can't.
That's right.
Yeah.
And at a certain point, I think there's a spirit of adventure that takes over. It's like agreeing to climb a mountain.
Right.
It rains, it's scary at times, it's dangerous at times. You wonder why you signed on for this trip. But then ultimately, it's the trip you signed on for, and the view is fantastic. To have that spirit of adventure.
You're so positive. How do you do it all the time?
There's nothing more, I feel, life-giving or exciting than to embark on living our own lives fully and to be present for another person doing the same. So to not be scared of the bad feelings, to not be scared of the difficulties, even the crises, the despair, because life changes and there's always something new right around the corner. And to not be scared of our emotions, even the terrible ones, to have that willingness to sit out the storm and to get the help that you need to make it manageable, and to know that you have a commitment to make things better in your life to the degree you have any power over it, to make those changes, to make life be that adventure, to be what it is that you want.
That talking about adventure, sometimes when I've seen people, they just don't know what to do anymore. Right? And they kind of like mentally give up and try something because there's nothing else left to do. They go, they don't really believe that this next thing is going to help, but like they don't feel like they have an alternative but to do something that feels crazy. Is that the adventurousness you're talking about?
It sure can be.
Yeah.
I come from a social work background, mental health and social work. And we come from a strengths perspective and that resiliency. The person that we're sitting with has survived to this point through amazing challenges. Every person has faced suffering. Every person has faced difficulty, and every person's journey is really worth honoring. So to acknowledge the challenges and that those challenges have been met. So often we're not validating the incredible things that we've already done in our lives and that we're doing in this moment. So there can be that focus on the discord and the unhappiness, but to also focus on that the person has survived to this point, which has taken amazing resources and talent and capability, and that with some blockages removed, with a willingness to ask for help and to receive help and to get help, that more blockages can be removed, and then that tremendous vitality and force can be put into really flourishing in life rather than, just fighting for survival. Where possible, where it's possible.
Hold that thought. We'll be back with the last segment of Shrink Wrap right after these messages.
Hi, I'm Ethan Allen, host of Likeable Science on Think Tech Hawaii. Come join us every Friday at 2 p.m. when I interview interesting scientists about what they do, why they do it, and why we should all care about it. It's a lot of fun to see. We hear, and you can learn interesting stuff. You'll hear all kinds of fascinating science, and we know you'll have a great time. Hope to see you then. Bye-bye.
Aloha, my name is Josh Green. I'm a senator from the Big Island and the ER physician. Every other Tuesday, I get to host a show here on the Think Tech program about healthcare. We call it Healthcare in Hawaii. It's really enjoyable for me to bring other healthcare leaders from around the state to talk about our pressing issues. Hawaii has long been the health state, but we need to keep up the momentum, the inertia, and with your help and with your participation, we can come and share all of the big issues that are pressing day to day. Thanks for joining us every Tuesday, alternating weeks from 2 to 2:45.
To look at.
Welcome back to the last portion of our show. I'm here still with Catherine Hage. So you told me in the beginning that you wanted to talk a little bit about the more severe forms of mental illness and what counseling can do for that. Take it away.
Oh, thank you so much. When someone has a severe and persistent mental illness, they have very disorganized thinking, delusions, hallucinations. There can be a misconception that there wouldn't be much of a place for counseling because there's not the same cognitive exchange that we normally expect in a therapeutic session. But every person needs and deserves the right to be heard, to have their experience be honored. And when we don't receive that, that can create psychosis. If there's not enough, if we think about, what a baby needs to survive, if a baby isn't held, if they're not stimulated, if they're not fed, that baby will die. And growing up, we still have all those same needs. We have a need for physical contact. We have a need to have face-to-face experience with someone who's compassionate and cares about us. And so those needs don't go away. And when we don't get those needs met, it can degrade our mental health. So for caregivers working with people with severe and persistent mental illness, it may be limited how much presence and listening that they're able to offer when they have so many other stressors and challenges that they have to deal with. So to provide counseling with someone with severe and persistent illness is really a profound gift for everyone involved. And to highlight the lucidity that happens, to care about the experience, because there's not a straight continuum of one mode of being. So this can really bring forth the abilities of the person with severe and persistent mental illness and highlight their health and their recovery. And give them that needed support to move forward in their recovery, along with what other interventions and methods are being used to best support them.
Like medication.
Medication, or being part of a clubhouse, or having other community support.
Yeah. So I hear you saying that you as a practitioner, what you tend to do is focus on the part of the person that's working, that's healthy. When you say highlight that.
Oh, well, thank you for highlighting that. Yes, yes. To highlight the strengths and the ability, as well as really honoring the challenges and the despair. That we kind of have to have our feet in two camps. One, recognizing And as you were sharing, as human beings, we all experience this. So we have a personal knowledge of what suffering is, of what isolation is, what it's like to not think like other people, to feel like an outcast, or whatever it may be. That's the prevalent experience in that moment.
And it's so alienating. You know, if you know in your head that something has happened. I recently had the experience of going to a movie, told somebody else I thought this movie was the greatest movie I ever saw, and they came back and thought, how could you think that's a good movie? That's horrible. I hated that movie. It was so alienating. You know, and sure, everybody's entitled to their opinion, but it was like we saw two different movies.
Right.
And I think maybe that's like what it's like sometimes for somebody with psychosis, is like they're seeing a movie that nobody's seeing.
Right.
And to be told all the time that it's not real must be incredibly frustrating.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We take it for granted that, you know, our cognitions are understood by other people, that what I see, basically you see too. And that was such a apt illustration, because in a way, we're living in entirely different movies. You
Everybody
know,
is.
each one of us,
Yeah.
we're the hero or the heroine of our own movie.
Right.
And it is, although it looks the same, it's entirely different, and it's so much markedly more so for someone with a severe and persistent mental illness. So to have those points of connection, which are the truth, they're not made up.
Right.
As human beings,
Right.
we have a vast common ground that we share, and our differences are actually much, much smaller. So to go to that vast common ground of we are humans, we share a human experience, and we can care about each other, that creates so much healing in and of itself. So to provide that for, you know, everyone, for ideally everyone has that to some degree in their life, whatever their experience is.
It's really hard working with people that have a different reality. I mean, and we all have a different reality, but people who are extremely different. And to try to understand that at the same time, not encourage what, you know, you don't want to increase what you see as hallucinations, delusional thinking, but without dismissing it at the same time. It seems like it's a fine balance and very hard to do for the families and for practitioners and for friends. It's maybe the key is in what you said, finding the commonality.
I think the way you just delineated it, having that intention is so clear. You know that we want to honor, just as if, you know, you're sitting with someone and they mention things that are homophobic, racist, misogynistic.
Yeah.
If the person is a pedophile, we don't have to agree or condone any of those things. And
Right.
it could be our intention to bring healing, you know, and which maybe would be to ameliorate those things and even shift the perspective. But we can honor the person.
Yeah.
We can honor their experience.
Right.
And we can recognize that each person is entitled to their beliefs.
Right.
And function and say, I need to let you know that, you know, I'm categorically against racism, misogyny, homophobia, or I don't see that same reality that you're seeing. I don't see the other people that you're talking to. I can't say for a fact they don't exist, but I have to say clearly that it's not my experience. And I care very much about what your experience is.
That's beautifully said. Very hard to do. I wish I could, you know, maybe I could just copy the show and play it for some people. It's like, really? You're going to vote for that guy? I honor that. It's not me. But it's very difficult. And I find that with depression specifically, it's such, to try to help somebody come out of that, I haven't had a lot of luck. What do you do?
You know what, I don't try to help them. I think that I think I can't really transform someone, but I think the power of transformation is present. And so to create that dynamic where a person can voice their fear, their deep fear, their very negative feelings about themselves and the world around them, and to not be scared of that. To that this world is broad enough and wide enough to hold all of it. The feelings of despair, anguish, anger, resentment, hatred, rage, that there is a way that we can skillfully work with whatever feelings, whatever experience is present, and that person's innate ability to heal can come to the surface. There's no guarantee. There's no guarantee that I'm going to be able to work with someone and help facilitate that happening, but it's also entirely possible that it can and will. And of course, you and I have both seen many times people change on a dime, have an intense transformation of utter despair. Yes.
Really?
And, you know, some people who are very steady may not understand that. They may have an experience of life which is very consistent, and they don't have the highs and the lows. And it's not to say one is good or bad or one is better than the other. People who have those highs and lows, or who have a seemingly perpetual low, that there's a mother lode behind it of great richness that we talked about earlier. And to be awake and alive for that miracle, for that transformation, which if we wake up and we look around, is happening all the time.
Well, what you said before, your first response was, I can't fix that. Somehow, that's a great relief, like whether you're a mental health professional or just a friend or part of a family. I think that's part of the problem, is that everybody wants to fix it and nobody can. And so you invoke this, I don't know what to call it, magic that you believe in, that is there, not inside of you, but just in the world, that you believe in, that, and that if you just, as you said, hold the space, allow the person to say, yeah, I hear you, you're feeling horrible, that's enough. That's hard.
They're knowledge at a certain point. You know, if somebody has had a trauma in their life years and years ago, and suddenly now they're experiencing excruciating pain and they feel like they can't go on, to normalize that. To let them know that's not strange, it's not unusual, it's par for the course, that you would feel these horrible feelings and hang on. Like a doula would, a doula or a birth coach would help a woman who's in labor. When she gets to transition, it feels like all hell is breaking loose. But the doula is not giving birth to the baby. The doula can't possibly give birth for that woman. But she can hold the space for her and say, you're doing great. You're right on course. You're going through transition. It feels like you're dying, but you're actually giving life.
That's a beautiful metaphor. And another example that I just thought of when you said that was, I was working with a very, very, very old woman, and she shared with me an incident of sexual abuse that she experienced when she was 7 years old. And she told me about it for the first time she had told anyone, and my jaw dropped, and I, and she went into some detail, and then all I said was, you were just a child, which is a very obvious thing to say, but that's what she needed to hear. It's like, yeah, I was just a child. And her mood shifted dramatically. Her whole face changed. And all I did was be there. And that was a gift she gave me. To allow me to be there.
Absolutely. It's such a profound gift. And what you shared in that perspective, as simple as it is, that statement, you were just a child, helps to derail the possible blame that many
that's what she had.
That many sexual abuse victims carry. It's my fault. I attracted this. What was it that I did? Why didn't this happen to my sister? So to derail that, and that's the false beliefs, the negative thinking, that another person, it can be very obvious to them because they're outside of the situation, and that same person may have even offered that same wisdom to another friend at a different time. But in her moment of travail, that you could be present for her in that way.
I'm afraid we've come to the end of our segment today. Thank you so much, Catherine. It's really, did you say if somebody wanted to call you to get help, how could they reach you?
It would be in my honor to work with anyone who felt like they could trust me and work with me in that capacity. And if they want and have you have me get in touch with them, that'd be great. And my name is Catherine Hage.
H-A-G-E.
Hage.
Thank you again,
Thank you so
Catherine.
much,
It's been an
Steve.
honor.
Oh, pleasure.